Hi, my name is Amy Rothfelder. I am a PSU alum. I graduated 2 years ago, and I worked on the Floodplains project as both, both as a student and as a TA for the PA students the year after I was in the class. And then now I work for the city, and I have. I actually ended up working on the project as a city employee as well, so I've had multiple different angles involved with the Lens floodplain. Go for it.
Thanks. I'm Ty Wilkins. I have a kind of similar story, but I graduated PSU last fall term, and I graduated with my undergrad in poli-sci with a minor in civic leadership. I got involved in the project first as a student, and then I was so captivated by everything that was happening, I really wanted to get more involved. So I ended up getting a stipend internship through Institute for Sustainable Solutions that allowed me to stay onto the project and kind of work behind the scenes and be a liaison along with Amy here between students and the nonprofit Green Lens that was working on the project at the time. I'll go a little bit more into detail. I started as a student, and that was fall term. It was the first of the project, and it was really cool. And after the term, after we got engaged and all the things, I wanted to stay on board and keep, working on the project, because mostly as a student you go on to other things, and I wanted to stay on the project. So I was working at Institute for Sustainable Solutions at the time, and I kind of was like, hey, you guys should pay me to keep working on this project and kind of bolster those relationships between the university and Green Lens and the community. So I got an internship to continue on the work, and then I worked on it for the rest of the year. And then we did a big end of year project, which was really cool. And that was, how I got involved.
I started working on the project in 2016, if I have my years right here. Yeah, I think spring of 2016. And we were, when I was a student, my class was, I think, either the first or the second cohort of students that were involved and were doing the actual field work within the community. And so over the I'm thinking semesters. Over the three quarters that I was involved, both as a student and as a intern TA, we did a lot of the surveying work. So we talked to community members in the neighborhoods about their flood insurance rates, about their experience living on the floodplain, and really sort of got the ball rolling for the outreach portion of the project, which was super cool. And it was a really great experience for me to be able to see experience it as a student and then be able to sort of help lead other cohorts after myself. Ty was one of those cohorts, and it was super cool. He was in the quarter after me, I think, my first quarter as a TA. And it was really cool for me to be able to see other students experience that field work and kind of blossom and try something new. And some of them really liked it and gleamed onto it, like Ty. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit too, if this is okay to kind of do the structure. I didn't really talk about what I did. I worked kind of under Green Lens, and Adam Brunel was the person who kind of was overseeing the project from Green Lens's partnership view. So I kind of worked under him, and I did a lot of the assistance with doing the canvassing and coming to class and assisting students and answering questions and all that other kind of things. And then I helped a lot in terms of like the overall progression of the project, because each term was just a little bit different, and so it required all the stakeholders to come together and really talk about what are the best practices and what are we really trying to achieve, and really talk about kind of everyone's goals and missions from the project. And so I got to join in on those conversations, which was really awesome. And I got to kind of advocate a little bit for Green Lens, advocate for PSU students because I was a student, and so I helped a lot with the project development as well. But that was mostly what I did after I was a student.
Well, I'm going to talk about it, if it's okay, in a little bit more general terms and my own experience. I think there are two main things that came out of having students and community leaders, TAs, faculty, everyone really coming together and working on this project at a community-based level. I think one of the main things that came out of it was that a lot of what the program was geared toward doing and engaging the students was geared toward doing was creating a sense of collaboration and teaching Portland State students how to do community work effectively, which in my opinion is working to meet the community where they're at. So it was, doing things like making sure that we were canvassing in Lents and that we weren't holding a meeting, 5 neighborhoods away about what their experience was like living in the floodplain. We were doing trainings that taught us how to talk to these folks at their own homes about their experiences, and I think it created a really cool sense of collaboration and community building that oftentimes you can't get from just a textbook, right? It was field work that had real value and real meaning. So that was the first thing, and then the second thing is just it really emphasized the collaborative aspect of working together, working not just as a classroom or as a cohort, but alongside the City of Portland, alongside nonprofits and NGOs, teachers, interns, Greenlands, which is obviously Ty has a little bit of a unique experience with that, but you learn how to work alongside a variety of stakeholders and to manage those relationships, to understand that everyone has a little bit different goals, but that you're all working toward this larger objective. And I think that from multiple perspectives, both as a former student, as a TA leader within the project, and then as a city employee, that the benefits are kind of limitless.
One cool thing that I really liked about the project, it was really emphasized the qualitative data that we wanted to collect. Generally, in these types of policy research, it's a lot of just quantitative, and it's looking at numbers, it's looking at how many people make this amount of money, looking at demographics and all these different kind of things. And I think one, maybe not unique, but one cool thing that we did was really honed in on that qualitative data. So we did a lot of storytelling, and we wanted to hear people's story. We didn't want to just ask them a bunch of questions. It was really honing in on their experiences and really recognizing their situation and the potential challenges and barriers for them living in this flood-prone area. And so it was really great to just go on people's doorsteps and just have conversations with them. And people so often would just be like, oh, I was born here, I lived here for this amount of years, and my family has done this, and all these really cool eclectic stories from these people. And you really got a sense of ownership and pride in where they live. And I feel like that often doesn't come through when you're collecting data. And we included a lot of pictures. One portion, I think someone included a video as well, and it was just really a great way to emphasize and to really highlight the community and their experiences living in this area.
I think I totally second that, and I would also say that I remember doing the field work both as a student and as a TA. And each time we went out into the neighborhoods and talked to the community members, there was always 1 or 2 people that were just so blown away by what we were doing. It's a really cool thing to have students canvas and talk to these folks, because I think it immediately sort of creates almost a level playing field. You're not some scary government official or somebody that is inherently intimidating. We're just people talking to people, and the fact that we did emphasize the qualitative aspect of this, and that some of the questions were really personal, that had to do with personal income, living expenses, stuff that folks don't usually want to just volunteer. But we had those conversations, and we were able to dig a little bit deeper. And when people in Lents found out what we were doing and why we were doing it, I mean, some of the coolest pieces of testimony that I came across were people just not only willing to share, but being grateful for our presence and happy that they were able to talk about some deeply personal stuff with us, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I can think of a few different conversations.
Yeah, and actually you had mentioned in your previous answer, you talked about meeting people where they were at, and that was, I think, a really important component of this project as well, especially, east of 205 are like the Forgotten Lands and have a really long, rough history of being disenfranchised and marginalized, and that is where most of the demographics end up. I don't know what I'm trying to say in that one. But anyway, so there are a long history of disenfranchisement in that area. And so for us to go to these areas and to their doors, and I wasn't part of this project, part of the project, but when they were presenting data, like going to their community center or going to their local school, going to their local community fair, all these other things, was really like honing in on that, meeting them where they're at, and coming in as kind of an agent of this collaborative project, and having that ability to just go to them and be like, hey, we want to hear your story. Because most of the time it's like, if they're looking for answers from the community, it's like, okay, join us at this town hall meeting at this time, or it's come downtown to the city office, or something like that, to go out of their way. And so this really honed in on that, meeting them there. And I think that was really important that we did.
And then just one final point is it's the Lens Listening Project, right? And I think there was a big focus on our ability as change makers to listen more than we talked. And I would argue that made a really, really big difference in the outcome. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a challenge for PSU to kind of put their money where their mouth is when they say let the knowledge serve the city, and universities are very often siloed and separate from whatever area they're in. And I think it's important for everybody to really take down those barriers and really make the university part of the city, and continuing on these projects. And I think one incredible thing that these projects often do is they're in the community for an entire year. And so it's not just coming in, doing some kind of like white savior, like, oh, we're going to come volunteer our time and then we're going to leave. All right, thanks. Here's your new road or something. I don't think students build roads, but some like community projects. And this really attacks it from so many different angles, and is really investing in the community and having the community be invested in the university, and also the partnerships that are involved as well with nonprofits in the city as well. So really challenging university and in its leadership to own up to that and continue developing these long-term projects in the community, and make sure that it's reciprocal and not transactional and transformational.
Yeah, I like that last piece of what you said. And I feel like I'm really lucky to have multiple perspectives on this project and have come at it from like 3 different angles, because I feel privileged to see the benefit of having such a collaborative partnership-based project exist in Portland, not just for Portland State students, but for city employees and for nonprofit workers. I think Ty hit the nail on the head. Let knowledge serve the city is the motto of Portland State, and I think projects like what we did in Lens is a really, really great example of that. And we should absolutely strive to have more initiatives undertaken, not just by the university, but by the city, by the county, by our government and non-governmental partners that are working on a plethora of really, really cool projects all over Portland, and on a larger scale, the state and the world. And yeah, I think the collaborative aspect of this work is paramount to actual substantive learning, and we should do more of it.
Yeah, and I think it also hones in on like a lot of that trust building, and there are many institutions in our area and in most of like the country that are like not trusted, and most people you ask like, oh, what do you think about government? Oh, crooked politicians. Oh, yeah, that was awful, but there's a lot of trauma in a lot of communities that that we go into and that we live in, and it's and acknowledging that and finding a way in which we can build towards a better future together. And I think this is a great way to do that, where you are bringing everybody to the table, and you bring people who traditionally aren't at the table to the table, and you're coming in and you're, you know, talking about needs and visions and, you know, all these other things to make everything better. And I think these types of projects really hone in on that and continue on that trust building. Like I had mentioned before, ESA 205 has been forgotten about for a really long time. And so doing things like this, and then bringing in city officials, bringing in students, bringing in community organization, community leaders, and community members, and everybody working together, I think that builds a lot. And, you know, trust being one of them, and, you know, can really lead to really great visionary things.